So hello, my name is Sam Bean and welcome to the 35th edition of Airhacks TV. We have lots of questions, so let's go. Let's start with the very first question. And the question is from Vasuv about entity relationships in microservices. And he says, okay, in a monolith, by the way, in a monolith, for me, a monolith, nothing wrong with monolith. So I really like monoliths. They are simple. So you have everything in one place. Everything is deployed at once. It's just perfect. So, but in a monolith, the entities have fields that refer to other entities via annotations. Relations and tables. So he means JPA. And in microservices, let's say service A fetches the users from service B, fetches the orders from separate databases. Yeah, what he means is what happens when we have two entities. So in the monolith, there were two entities in one microservice. In one monolith. On in microservices, we tier the entities apart. So there's one entity, one microservice, and the other one in the other one. And how do I handle the relationship in a simple CRUD scenario? So the easy answer, actually two answers. Either there is no relationship, so what you will have to change, the business logic, or you have duplicate relationships. So what will mean is we have users, which refers to the orders, but the user with the relation to the orders as entire in one microservice, which points to the microservice database. And in the other microservice, there is still one order, which is different to this order, and it points to the different database. So you get two databases with two orders with duplicate data, but probably with slightly different data, different columns. This is what microservices are doing, they are causing lots of duplication. So they nothing wrong with duplication in microservices. And the point is, what we can do, if you really know the business logic, you can use it and as an advantage. And for instance, what we sometimes do is historization tables can be split into different microservices, and you don't need historization anymore if you have a copy of the data anyway. So if you're interested in such scenarios, of course, come to Munich. I think the next microservice workshop is around the corner, and or ask questions at the next Airhacks TV. The next question is also a good one. What I'm thinking about reactive programming, using reactive streams like Eric Java, Spring Reactive, Akka Stream, whether they are going to be in enterprise applications widely adopted. I don't think so. Not widely adopted. They are rarely adopted right now, and I don't think that they are going to be widely adopted in enterprise applications, but somehow adopted. Can we reach currently the same goals using plain Java E with completable features and executors? Yeah, of course. So actually, I've shown this several times. Also in the online Java E, online microservices Java E course, I use completable feature to chain different microservices together and executors. But the RX Java, they go a little bit further, and they are actually use cases. So I was invited for a cloud native workshop or evening at BMW, and had a chat with Leander. This is a nice guy. He had also a talk about his project, was Java E Payara project as well. What they did is they combined different REST services to one REST service for a nicer view, and they use actually reactive programming because it was easier. So this is a unique requirement where reactive programming fits really well. In my projects, as you probably already know me, I would try to stick with completable feature, and if they are no more reasonable, which means if the code explodes, becomes too complex, then I will of course use Eric Java. Next one. Let's see what the chat does. The chat is quiet. We have people already from here's Baden-Württemberg, and someone from Mexico and someone from Greece, which is nice. Question. about why I'm using WRS core response instead returning XML root element or persistence entity. So the reason is different. Is what I could do. I could return response and pass an entity, JPA entity, to the response, and it could be even annotated with XML root element. So it's not like if I return response in JAX-RS. Wait a second. Oh, we have IDE. The nice story with Java EE is hacking code is faster than explaining it. So, and you have always used dots, not commas. So this one, and not Airhex workspace. Just do the just go to regular junk, and JAX-RS response. Okay, so we have that. And let's say we have Airhex resource. Airhex resource. So, and we have, of course, a episode. So I skip the boundary and entity, and we just use that. So, and the XML root element bindings, what he referred was that XML root element. And then I would probably even go further and say accessor type field. So I don't have to generate superfluous getters and setters. And the episode has a number, or a number is actually a string. And description. So we have a nice object. So enough. And now I could, of course, say this is Airhex. And we have, let's say, now response. And I will skip the list. I will just go here with a single. So do it right. Path. We have ID, and then we get something like pass param. And we had the number. Okay, and the response. And now we can say return response dot okay. And then I can pass the entity, so I can still do this, So nothing wrong with that. And the number would be today. We have the 35th episode. 35th. And the description would be some hacking with nice chat. Okay, built, done. Another question why I'm doing this. This doesn't make any sense, but what I could do, I could pass additional header information and say, okay, state too many questions. So I could just, add additional metadata here. And of course, if I would create, this is even more important, because if I create something, then I'm almost forced by the HTTP standard to say create it with the URI and build. So then I will always use response. So I always use response in case I have to pass additional information or change the status or something like this. Another question is why I'm using why I prefer JSON response over entity. And the reason is if I have to deal with React, Angular, or web component projects, and it is very likely that we will need a nice format for the client. And then I just go with JSON objects. So I just expose the JSON objects directly without even attempting, to starting with entity. So I just use the JSON object. And by the way, how I do this, I wrote a blog post, and this is a sample, workshop to JSON. So this is what happens, and here I can serialize my object whenever I like. And if this is not enough, I can still, in the resource, serialize my object to whatever format I like. Okay. Nice. So first, Monsieur Burant, he is in a Greek army, in the military. So I'm curious in which category of military. He looks like a Marines or something. So and he reads my archive, which and he finds the archive exciting, which has to say something about the military. If my Java EE archive is exciting, then the military could be a little bit boring. But let's see. These were tools which I used back then. Actually, almost 11 years ago, and this is what I did. So, and I would replace not with Maven 2 with Maven 3. It still holds up. Xdocket is that, and why I will explain a little bit later why Xdocket or code generation is suspicious. APT is annotation processing tool for generation. I don't use it anymore. What I use as a secret weapon is Nashorn for a little bit more dynamic stuff, and JavaScript Nashorn. Look at the YouTube channel; you will find some examples. And so I replaced JBoss IDE with NetBeans, but JBoss IDE is still great. So if you like Eclipse and you don't like to play with the plugins, just use JBoss IDE is genius. P6Py, sometimes great. What P6Py does, it's like decorator for JDBC, and you can just log out your SQL statements. JMeter, so I will extend with Apache Benchmark AB and JMH. This is Java Micro Benchmark Harness is a Maven plugin. It's great. I will have to write another blog post actually, so we'll do it. And this JMH, if you're interested, look at the testing workshops. I use it extensively. JUnit Perf, I'm not using it a lot anymore. But what I use instead is if I have to measure the performance or do something like this, I use JUnit rules. Instead of JConsole, I use JVisualVM and Java Mission Control, JMC. JEdit, nice editor. I use Visual Studio Code right now and NetBeans, but JEdit is still interesting. Both are no more that interesting. What I use is, this is crazy. 10 years ago, I already used Cruise Control. I use Jenkins, of course. JDepend, PMD, Findback, checks, Jalopy, basic QA stuff. Yes, so if I have to measure the quality, I use Sonar source. Middle-gen is out. Star, this is like Xdocket. Star UML was a free UML tool. Java 7 is so concise and so thin that we actually don't use even UML anymore. We just, the view classes, there is nothing else. If you write code, it's faster to understand than draw a diagram. So what we do, we need on a whiteboard, we draw, the concepts, but it doesn't have to be UML. Squirrel, QuantumDB, EclipseDB, and just NetBeans database explorers. Yeah, and I use actually NetBeans, and I use some native tools on Mac. So back then I still had my ThinkPad, and then it broke, so I bought Mac, and since then I use Mac. I think it was 2007 or 8. So I have some native tools for database. And Jix, very fast compiler for development. Right now we have SSDs, and compiling is crazy fast. But I will think about this and write another post. So thank you. And what happens here in chat? Not that much. Twitter, quiet. Then come back here. So, and now the question is simpler. And the question is how to do cross-field validation with bin validation. And he asked me, wait a second, YouTube, and I'm being, and videos, JSON validation. Exactly. I don't like to click on it because it will run and it could break our streaming connection. So we just put it here. Stop. So I think what I did here, I validated from Germany. Someone from Germany. Germany is hello. Is nice. So, and what I did in the video, I created validator for JSON object, and JSON object is an object. So if you, and this is a little bit more complicated because the object is generic. And so if you look at the video, the screencast, you will immediately recognize how to implement cross-field validation for entities. But it is actually easy. I could hack this. Actually, I could hack this the next as a YouTube screencast. I think it will take 3 minutes or something like this. So let's do this next week. But for now, you will have to annotate a class, an entity, and the validator will get the whole entity and will get the whole state. What I usually do, I implement a method valid inside the entity, like this should be valid or validate, and the bin validation tool calls the method, and it only knows the method. This will be actually a good case for interfaces. So it calls the method, checks whether it is true or false, and then reports an error or not. So this is how it works. Pretty simple. Actually, such a screencast is lacking. So I will write a screencast or record a screencast is faster than post. So we'll do this. A very good one. Monsieur T.N. Sasse, 13 days ago, asked me, what is my opinion about GPL and LGPL licenses? So, so the thing is, I think it's called, we need the GPL with ClassPass exception. And what it means is that we can load the library and our code doesn't have to be GPL. And my understanding is this is true for most of the libraries. Yeah, this is, if you don't modify the libraries, everything is fine. If you modify the libraries, my understanding is you will have to submit the modification to Hibernate. So, my OSS license preferences. I started recently a project called Tracy. Has something to do with open tracing. I will push the code probably tomorrow. And I thought about what license to choose. Usually I choose Apache because it sounds great. And I think this MIT is more liberal. So this time I started with MIT. So from my understanding about the licenses is if you don't care about licensing, you should still choose a license to protect yourself. Why? I actually forgot. So there is it is really important that you have to have a license in an open source project, and otherwise something bad can happen to you. And in my Java E projects, we don't have the issue because I can, I try to delete every single external dependency, and if you don't have any dependencies, you don't have any problems with licenses. But what I saw in code reviews, which is really dangerous, developers sometimes copy and pasted open source code into their project, and this is really problematic because then you violate all the licensing. So you should never do this. But if you're including libraries, of course, they have to have the GPL, the right license. This would be GPL with ClassPass extension. So Mr. Garcia asked me whether I tried Peg4j. And no, I haven't. I look at that and it looks interesting. What I used a lot is Keycloak. And what we get in Java E is Soteria RI Java. So this is the security spec, which is usable right now. So and this has similar features. This is just a reference implementation. It comes with Java 8. So take a look at this. But actually, the spec for J, I looked at the J2E. Actually, there's no J2E. Java E has to be. There's even Java E extension. Look at briefly at this. Is well documented. Looks interesting. Right now, I use Keycloak and I played with Soteria. And yeah, but thank you for the reference. I don't have any project experience with that. Okay, but looks actually, if you go here, for instance, it's really well documented. So look at this. So this is so nice. So this is comment from my blog, and the question is: so we have two CRUD services, stateless session beans. Each has an entity manager injected. Ejection. Actually, it's a cool term. We can something injecting on and ejecting. So the producers could be ejectors actually. In Java. So we have injected EJBs. So the first service has also a second service injected with EJB. So we have one service and another service injects to the first one. And if we have a method in the first service which uses the entity manager and calls the method in the second service, which in turn also uses entity manager, do the two entity managers share the same DB connection? And the question is, of course, it depends. If the EJBs are just annotated with at stateless, it will work. It will share the same connection. So why? Because with at stateless, so what you will see, so let's assume we had here, this would be an EJB, which is not a bad idea. So what it actually means that we get transaction attribute, which is required. And required means if there is no transaction, a new transaction is going to be started. But if there is already one, it is going to be reused. So, and having that means pretty cool. So the transaction of whatever I call here, I could invoke here whatever I like. So I would just pick another class and call it Hex Tower. And this is a EJB. And with send signals, hacking. So, and this you have two EJBs. So we could inject now the other one, Hex Tower. And if I would do this, tower.send signals, what happens then? The transaction is going to be started here, but reused in this method. And if I would inject the entity manager here and the entity manager here, the entity manager will participate in the same transaction. So not only the connection is going to be shared, but also if I would find an entity here, so entity manager find, and call find here as well, I would get the same entity back. But if I put here transaction attribute requires new, then I will get, what's wrong? Forgot import. Then I will get multiple transactions, multiple connections, and multiple copies of the entity. Perfect. So let's see what happens here. Peru and Kosovo. Crazy. And Italy Ustream chat appears as censored. I think if you write too much, then it's censored, I guess. Yes, you will have to decompose the data. So in my opinion, you can be only successful in microservices if you really know the business logic way. Technology is not the issue. Business logic is the issue. Victor asked me, if I use JSON object, JSON via Pojo, and then the JSON will be set in the response builder entity, or you will directly use the Pojo in the response builder entity. If you go to my blog, I hope. I forgot actually. Yes, you see here what I did here. JSON array, I iterated over the list of workshops and created here a JSON array from workshop to JSON from this method. If it fits well, I do this. Otherwise, you know, I can just process the JSON in whatever fashion I like. So, I answered. I have a question about how to properly organize the code in a microservice project. First, the code organization, what I usually do is the BCE artifact, and what I always start with the simple project here, but there's another project called Java BCE archetype. That's the essential, and this is more a sample project. So if I start that and say structure, it will create a larger project with system tests, integration tests, and whatever. But what you will find here, I hope, a nice structure. And this is the BCE structure. And the idea is top-level packages are always have always business meaning, so like registrations in workshops or tracing. And we have then the structure boundary control entity. So we have always the same. You will also find some screencasts on my YouTube channel about this. So this is the internal organization. So it means we have one war which comprises top-level packages with business names, and they are cohesive, means they are the content of the packages belongs together. And every package, I call it component, comprises sub-packages, boundary, control, entity, and the meaning is boundary, API to the outside world, control, optional, but reusable stuff. These are stateless EGBs, these are POJOs, which is going to be actually POJOs, but they are actually CDI beans, and these are entities which are optional. Okay, this is the code structure. One repo per service, yes, it sounds reasonable. I mean, it really depends on lifecycle. If your requirement is, you know, that the services have to go to production in different versions, is one GitHub repo for service. One module per service or several. That is what I don't need. I don't know what you need by module. I would say there are multiple packages, Java packages or components, BCE components inside a war. And how big is a war? A small pizza team creates a war. So this is, now you have the granularity. Package structure already discussed. I think, in my eyes, I provided so much content about this, it should be crystal clear what to do. And most of the content is even free. So if you go to my YouTube channel or search for BCE blog post, you will find the structure. If not, ping me and I will record a screencast. Okay, and by the way, of course, there is a course, Effective Java E, where I build an app with the structure. And this is already a microservice, but even more, there is this Java EE microservices workshop, where I also use the structure and on the fly create microservices on the fly from scratch and wire them together so they talk to each other. Okay. I hope. So I will. Don't like to see myself. So next one. Or next one. Okay. Someone asked me. I'm not. Java API for JSON binding comes in Java E8. Looks really promising. And I don't using it yet in projects. If it will come out, I would think about. I would try it first and get a feeling what the advantages are. But it looks really promising. Thank you to Dirk from Hamburg. Okay, cool. And Victor used also my approach, which is really good because I used this approach for, I would say, 1.5 years. And I was at the beginning not very sure, but it works better than expected. Okay. Oh. So. Okay, now the next one. What is your perception on the adoption of using Gradle in the industry today? Do you see it replacing Maven in the long run? It depends where. I think for Android development, Gradle shines. For Java EE development, Maven is very good. So actually, in the last few years, I never saw Gradle in Java EE projects, always Maven, and developers were very happy with it. And Gradle is perfect. So Gradle is more like programming tool, and Maven relies heavily on conventions. And if you can live with the conventions, Maven is unbeatable. If you cannot live with the conventions, just don't use Maven. It won't work for you. And now the question is, Java EE enterprise applications often need to come with resources like SQL scripts, customizing, or whatever. And also, there's customizing scripts to website admin. So what I'm doing with this, and what I do with that is recently the following. The scripts are not in the war. Actually, there are two answers. So the first one, the recent one, is Docklens. So most of my projects are using Docker right now. And what we use then, for instance, Payara configured. This is a Docker file which configures the application server. So the script is executed if the image is created. And then we have one application server which is specifically to the project configured. And then the war is deployed to this image, but this has to build only once. This is just, a placeholder. So you can create here JMS queues, whatever data sources. So this is what we really use in real life. So, but where was it? Okay. Sometimes this is more for internal projects, but in products where we just, it's not like we build over and over again the same project and push it in production in continuous delivery mode. But if we have to install something on the customer side, then we ship the scripts with the war, and a startup singleton installs whatever is needed. So it creates table indices or whatever. So this was my approach, also worked well. So in projects, I use Docker, or before Docker, there were scripts. And I think I showed a script, Sean, already several times. Let's see, cd, I think here, create X-ray domain. This is my own script, and this script was executed on Jenkins, and Jenkins created the Glassfish version here. This is what happened there, and this was before Docker. As you can see, it still refers to Glassfish 3, which is museum technology. I think is already 10 years old or something. So as a long time ago, I used this approach with Jenkins, and right now, these scripts are part of the Docker image. Okay. Answered. Also a good one. A small company, they are afraid of Oracle JDK licensing issues. And yeah, it really depends what you're doing. To my knowledge, Oracle never changed the licensing. So it was always the case that if you are running JDK on not general purpose machines, you will actually have to pay money, Sun. And Oracle is, it just looks, Oracle is more is conscious about the licensing, and they take advantage of this. But if you are not sure whether your client runs on general purpose hardware or not, you can still use OpenJDK. And in fact, because it's easier to install on my server, everything runs now on OpenJDK. I always use the Oracle JDK and actually Sun JDK and Oracle JDK, and for 1 year it runs on OpenJDK, no issues so far. And this licensing is more like, if the project is critical, you would probably like to buy the license anyway to get support better JMC Java Mission Control support for in production. But if not, yeah, then OpenJDK, just try it. I think is fine. And OpenJDK is OpenJDK, so it's like open source. You can just use it. Then I got an email from friends from Panama, and they had created a. So we have to translate it first. See here, NoSQL layer for Java. So it was nice. So I will just, if someone creates something in the leisure, should be promoted. So check that out. So it could be useful to you. And yeah. Now to the next one. Next one was a tweet, and so it is impossible to answer this via tweet. And the question is, what is my view of model-driven architecture and microservice? So my view is of somehow Java E bias, so I can just speak from Java E. So and in the Java E world, what I saw is the last years our wars are tiny, and actually I perform more and more interviews on my blog and ask the clients to know how big are the wars, and they are really, if the project is reasonable, the wars are really small. And what I mean small is that, yeah, the business logic, there are just, view 100 classes probably, and they contain mainly business logic. So what it means is the model-driven architecture can actually only work if you are able to express your business logic, your algorithm in UML or whatever model you have, state machine or whatever, and then generate the Java code. And the definition in the UML model has to be faster than actually the creation of code. And now with Java 6 and 7, we have a one-to-one relation between the platform-independent model. This is in model-driven architecture, the right name for this, so PIM, platform-independent model. So there would be one box in UML, and the PSM, platform-specific model, for instance, for Java E, would be in Java 6, also one box. So we have one-to-one relation between a box in UML and a box in Java, which is box is a Java class. So what you will, the additional value would be that we generate sometimes, one or a few annotations. And I don't think it works out. And in fact, I used a lot MDA and Xdoclet and tools like that. So 10 years ago, this was what I mentioned with Xdoclet. But and why? Because back then, with all the JDK versions, there were no annotations, no enums. Reflection was slow, so the whole J2E was based on code generation and XML. So there was one box in UML, let's say an entity. This was the first one. Let's say a persistent entity. So what the Xdoclet or MDA would do, let's say entity with 5 fields. It will generate a local interface, a local home interface. In the local interface, there would be get and setter for all the fields. Home interface would comprise finders and creates methods for all the fields. Then the entity bin implementation, it will be all getter setters, EGB load, EGB store, passivate, activate, and EGB create. Then a value object, because entity bins were not transferable between layers, so value object and the creation of value object would be also create. And what you also could create is a session facade, because the session facade wrapped the entity bin. So there's another 3 interfaces in an XML file, and a service locator could be used, to mimic this. And sometimes you could create a business interface, and the business interface would decouple the clients from the ugly J2E 1.3 technology. Okay, so back then you could express a lot with one box in UML. Right now, it doesn't matter, because whatever I told you right now, it doesn't matter. It disappeared. There's no more part for, I don't think, 13 years of Java E. Okay, something happened here. The chat was nervous. So what are the benefits making REST endpoints EGB instead of CDI beans? Victor asks, monitoring. So if you look YouTube channel, so if you add stateless is immediately visible. For instance, Payara, I see the slowest methods, average methods, and also performance. So, but this I think I mentioned several times. There's a nice guy called Samolis of GitHub, and he created a benchmark. He actually watched a course testing Java EE testing. This I didn't mention it so far. Java EE testing, I think. I forgot my own course. So Java EE testing. Where is it? Here, Java EE testing. Yeah. And in this course, I at the end there was something with CDI. I tested the performance stress test with JMeter, with Apache Bench and JMH. Exactly. And what I did, I compared the performance of EJBs with CDI beans, and EJBs were faster. And Monsieur Samolisov saw that, so okay, nice. Then created a GitHub project with 4 more results. So EJBs are faster. EJBs provide you with monitoring. The transactional behavior we had we spoke about before is also included. So what it basically means, you write lesser code, and EJBs are part of the application server anyway, so just use them. Okay. Thank you for the question from the chat. And my links appear censored. Okay. Sorry for that. Okay. Done. Then Bruno Borges, Monsieur Borges, this should be visible in the Twitter somewhere. Yeah. Bruno, old friend, works at Oracle right now and from Brazil. And he tweeted like there is a bare metal services for Python. And I asked him, what's about Java? And indeed, there are bare metal services in Oracle Cloud. And everything is on GitHub, actually. So what I did, I didn't manage to actually look at it more closely, but I was curious, and I just built that, and everything built, and it was surprisingly fast. So the Oracle bare metal services, I just cloned them and build them, and everything works out of the box, which is surprising. You know, I already thought I have to to provide some configuration, whatever, but not. It was really nice, and it looks like the Oracle bare services is like basic Java services which you can use in your projects. So it's interesting that they knew about this. This is SDK, and it points to this is Javadoc, but there is yeah, this is more formal, but this is bare metal services exactly. So, and this is networking, load balancing, compute service, database service, block volume, and SDK and other tools. And there is a Java SDK, which is really nice. So I will actually play with it. Looks nice. Okay. So Oracle does some interesting stuff, and no one knows about this. Okay. Then the last one. The last one were go back. Java News. And so Oracle woke up. So now the Java EE vacations are over. All the spec leaks are cranking specs like crazy. This is my this is what I see. So I try to contribute a bit, 2%, to the mailing list of JAX-OS regarding Threadpool integration, Java integration, and so in JAX-OS they're discussing RX reactive programming right now with JAX-OS and integration with Java 9. So if you are interested in this, just participate in JAX-OS mailing list. Then the JSON binding spec is ready to review. So this is also going strong. So actually all these specs woke up, and I will participate a little bit more. And this is I like this actually. Why? Because from now to Java 1, there's a limited amount of time, like half a year. So, we have to be more productive. So if there is too much time, you get tons of emails and nothing gets done. But right now it looks like people are productive, and yeah, so far everything looks nice. I think we are done, which is amazing because we had 16 questions and some hacking. Yeah, we are done. So I will just go to the chat. If you have some questions in the chat, no questions in the chat. No questions in the Twitter. So then I have to say thank you for watching. See you on airhacks.io.com, or just, what was it? This is the workshops. And the first time about performance troubleshooting, what I will try to do is to explain, the inner workings of application servers and server-side Java, back pressure, thread pool configuration, how to monitor this. I get lots of questions about that. And of course, I'm already looking to this, is around the corner is the JavaScript workshops. So thank you for watching, and see you soon, and bye.